Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I do hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video. This is my advanced setup for the Velocity 1 flight stick. Following on from my previous setup videos. Yes, you can manipulate the heading bug. Look down here. Like I showed you before with other videos. Let me just come down a bit though. I've now set up a few more buttons so I can manipulate the autopilot assigned altitude. As you can see here, press of a couple more buttons, I can bring up my vertical speed and manipulate that just using buttons and controls on the Velocity 1 flight stick. Essentially meaning you don't need other actually I don't want to go that low, let's just increase that vertical speed and altitude. Autopilot assigned altitude, that's better. Bring up vertical speed again. Essentially now meaning that you can just use your Velocity 1 flight stick for autopilot shenanigans. You don't need much else. I've done a couple of other things as well. A couple of custom views. Again, just clicking a couple of buttons. Or a combination of buttons, shall we say. Okay, well let's not dilly-dally. Let me show you how I did this. Let's get on with this video. Okay, so whilst I'm up in the air, trying to fly back towards London City, or downtown London, shall we say. How's that? Let me show you a couple of these settings. So I go straight to options. What should we show you first? Shall we show you what autopilot functions I've set up? Now, with the Velocity 1 flight stick, let me just get onto that. As you can see, I've called it Overdrive. I just went crazy yesterday setting up these settings, and there's more you can set on this. Now with the buttons B16, B17, let me show you a picture of where they are. When using the trim wheel, you would often trigger those buttons, so there was nothing useful that I could find to put on them until now. Let me show you what I have put on them. So autopilot, so B17 and B16, B17. Basically, I've put on vertical speed for B17. And vertical speed hold off for B16. Let's just go back to the sim and get inside the cockpit. Well, so what does that do? If I press B17, you'll see the vertical speed indicator will come up, and I can press a couple more buttons, which I'll show you later, to alter that vertical speed level. If I press B16, that vertical speed indicator will go off. So that's what it does. B17 turns it on, B17 turns it off. Let's get back to my control settings. My control options. And my Overdrive setup here. Okay, so autopilot. As you probably saw, let's continue with that B17. Let me just see if I can make sense of my own buttons here. Yeah, increase autopilot reference vertical speed. So what I've done, I've chose a button on my controller, and I'll show you where it is. It's B7. I've chose that to assign nothing to it for certain aircrafts, and basically I'm going to put that as my shifter button. So if I hold that button with a combination of another button, I can change a value. So with the vertical speed reference, I'm holding B7 and I'm using my hat 1 again. Now while I've got vertical speed indicator up, I can increase the value, so a plus range to help my aircraft to climb. And holding B7 again, I'm going to show you a reference of that on screen of course, holding B7 again and my H1 down, it will decrease the vertical speed. So I hope that makes sense. And to assign them, it's a little bit tricky. Let's just try and reassign this. So what I'm going to do here, when you're assigning these, I'm going to hold down B7 and push up, well, I'm going to press B7 and H1 up at the same time. Yep, that's done it. Apply and save. And the same for down, so vertical speed reference down. Okay. Let me just show you in effect. That might sound confusing. So again, B17 will bring my vertical speed indicator up. And I'm going to hold down B7 and H1 up, and that will increase the range that I'll be climbing. In fact, I want to go back down to my assigned altitude. So I'm going to hold B7 and my H1 down, and that will give me a negative range, or basically a descent range on my vertical speed. So if basically if you assign autopilot altitude like I just did there, you found it was doing the wrong thing, you can manipulate it, bring up your vertical speed indicator first with B17, and then press B7 and H1 in this case, just to increase the range of the negative vertical speed, and it will take me back down to my autopilot assigned altitude. Let me just see what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm not crashing into buildings, that's good. Okay, let's continue. So I talked about the autopilot assigned altitude. Well, how did I do that? Let's show you. If I go to control options again, and into autopilot. Oh, it takes its time. Back on my Overdrive profile. So basically, let's find it again. So, increase autopilot reference altitude and decrease autopilot reference altitude. What they do is, in effect, come down to this view, this figure here, so you're assigning your autopilot to climb. I've got a couple of buttons set, so I can either decrease it or increase it. I'll put it back to 1100, it doesn't matter for now. And the buttons I set up for this, so let's just go into it. Autopilot assigned altitude. The buttons I've set up for this are holding my trigger button at the front of the Velocity 1 flight stick. Show you a visual reference. And to increase, let's just find it again, I've got quite a lot. So to increase, I'm holding my trigger button, and I'm using my H1 up to increase. And of course to decrease, holding my trigger button, I believe it comes up as button 18 for some reason, and holding my H1 down, basically, to decrease the autopilot assigned altitude. Again, it sounds confusing, but let's just set one of these up. Reset it up for you. So I'll click in here, I'm going to press the trigger button and H1 up at the same time. Oh, that didn't work. Gave me all kinds because I think I moved my joystick as well. So it's a bit fiddly. There we go, that's done it. So trigger button and H1 up at the same time. And again, what this does, holding my trigger button, even though I've got brakes, so when I come into land, my trigger button is my brakes, and that's by default, I think. That will still work if you're up in the air like this. Pressing your brake button is going to do nothing to the aircraft. So hold down my brake button and move my H1 up to increase or decrease the autopilot assigned altitude, as you can see there. So I hope that makes sense. Rewatch this slower if you need to, or go on rewatch this if you haven't quite got that, but it's quite straightforward. The rest of them I showed in my previous setup video for the Velocity 1 flight stick. Nav 1 hold, heading hold, autopilot master. Those are buttons that I already had set up, and I'll link that video down in the description in case you've not seen it. Okay, so with them out of the way, let's show you a couple more settings. So let me show you a couple more things that I've set up, and these are going to be within the view system. Let me get them into the cockpit. Now, if I use my H1, I think by default it was quick view left and right. Obviously we've changed that to move the heading bug, but I missed the quick views. So basically I'm going to use my B7, my shifter key, and use my H1 so I can quick view left and right. Very useful. It's always handy to do a quick view left or right when you need to. And of course, if I release B7, I'm back to manipulating the heading bug. So let's just quickly show you that one. Control options, quite straightforward as I just showed you there. Let that go back to my Overdrive profile, that's good. Cockpit camera. And yes, like I said, show you a visual representation of that on screen. Holding down my B7 and using my H1 left and right would give me those quick views left and right. Okay, let's take that off screen and show you something else now. The only other thing I've set up with views... Oh, it's not cockpit camera. It's going to be fixed camera. Toggle fixed camera 9 and 10. And what I'm doing there, I'm using B7 again as the shifter. And I'm pressing A for, let me just see there, toggle fixed camera 9. And pressing Y for toggle fixed camera 10. Now it's up to you what you set up with them, but you can set up a whole suite. You do have to be in external mode. In fact, let me show you what those fixed camera settings are. I can do this via flow, or you can do it through the top menu here. If you go to your cameras, showcase camera 9 is that one, and 10 is that one. That's what I've set up. Let's just move that back to external so it doesn't confuse the sim. So I'll do this using my buttons, holding B7, pressing A will give me that view, pressing B7 and Y will give me that view. Just press B7 and Y again, or whichever view you're in, to get back to your default external view. And then I can go back into the cockpit. So I hope that makes sense. Control options. Just go to camera, up you come, fixed camera, and I'll show you a visual representation of that on screen for toggle fixed camera 9, for example, holding B7 and pressing A at the same time. So there you go, all very straightforward, and it'll be the same for 10, just hold your shifter button and any button you want. So it gives you a good variety and good opportunities to set up as many custom views as you wish. May change that one. I'm not using that one much, but I do like that view. Look at that. How beautiful is that? Oh, stunning, stunning. So, okay, chaps. Those are my setups videos. Things have changed. There's more settings that I want to play with. It's not for the faint-hearted. If you've not managed my other setup video, which is linked in the description. In fact, let me just come down and increase my autopilot. Assigned altitude, turn vertical speed on, and put a bit of vertical speed nose up there. There we go, so we're climbing to that new altitude. If you've not managed my other settings, this might be beyond you a little bit, but hopefully you can follow this. I've tried to make it as straightforward as I can. Let me know your thoughts on this video. Give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more, many more of these types of setting videos on their way. And I'll see you soon.